graduates in college, so no, because she's interested in. Where's my chapstick? Come on, do I not have anything with me today? This is annoying. She's interested in small schools.
Did y'all go anywhere
And
else? Well, I didn't mean to interrupt. Did y'all go anywhere besides Davis?
yeah, they had like a half day thing, so that's what we went to, which was really helpful because she's. We're gonna still try and get like we want to before we start looking at the real school she's interested in because none of them are anywhere near where we live at all. We're doing one small liberal arts school and one big like state university so she could get a feel. But, and this was helpful because she's pretty much says she wants to go to like a small private liberal arts college, and this would be good. Oh, that's
In Tennessee?
Oh, in Tennessee.
Nashville.
No, but is it like religious? Like, is it? Oh, well, she's not into. She's doing. She's pre-med.
You mad? Oh, you got lots of options.
And lots of expenses after undergrad.
That too.
But that's one reason what we like about the smaller because liberal arts schools have gotten a lot better with like STEM programs, and because there's no grad program,
Everybody thinks they're expensive. Ridiculous.
they have a lot of funds, and because there's no grad schools, undergrads get the research opportunities, which is helpful for med school applications. Oh man, am I writing all over? Great.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to call our November 4th meeting to order. Before we begin, please silence your cell phones so they don't interrupt our flow of business. First, we will begin with a moment of silence. Please join me, if you would like, for a moment of silence. Thank you so much. And now, if you are able, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Smith will give you the floor for announcements. Thank you.
Look through to the next one. So first off, just a little detail about the landscaping going on in our roundabouts here on 115. NCDOT approved the scope of work on October 6th, 2023. And at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a rendering of what the new landscaping will look like once it's in place and matured from a given angle. And it's important to note the design complies with NCDOT's guidelines, which it makes the center of the islands more conspicuous. It focuses drivers' attention on key areas in the roundabout, and it discourages pedestrians from walking through the roundabout. Next up, we have our Lake Norman Teen Council food drive going on. The Teen Council is working in partnership with Bags of Hope, and they're collecting bags of food for Thanksgiving. We're collecting items through November 12th, and those items can be dropped off at Town Hall through and on November 12th. Items that they need for these bags are a $20 Food Lion grocery gift card, canned pasta, ramen noodles, canned vegetables, Hormel completes, mac and cheese, peanut butter, applesauce cups, oatmeal packets, and granola bars. Also a bit of exciting news. So we have a new college summer baseball team that will be playing out in Huntersville Athletic Park next summer. Currently, they're named Lake Norman Baseball on social media because they don't have a name, and they're asking for our residents' help in naming the team. So they're going to be launching a social media contest to name the team tomorrow at 4:30 on their pages. Those are links to their profiles, but we will be sharing that out to the town's pages as well to help promote that to our residents. So you can look on the town social pages as well after 4:30 tomorrow. Leave a comment, vote in the poll, let them know what you would like the team to be named, and that will become the team name when they play here next summer. And now we have a downtown update, and I'm going to turn it over to our planning director, Brian Richards.
Good evening. Just a quick update. As of earlier this week, the design guidelines that are outlaid in the downtown master plan, the draft is complete, and Brad Priest, Assistant Director, is working on getting those documents finalized, so we'll be able to share that with our development community. We've moving on to the downtown parking plan and parking study. Staff has done completed the data collection portion, and we're beginning the analysis on that. Hopefully, we'll have that ready for you guys to talk about for some potential text amendments in mid to late spring. So a lot of folks came out and participated on the Vroon Roof, October 17th to the 18th. Actually, it should have been the 19th. Consultants are finalizing their reports, and we should have something for you guys at the beginning of December. And then after that, we will probably be looking for some grant money, some grant opportunities to do a larger demonstration than what we did during the Vroon Roof exercise. Got a lot of great feedback, especially in the press, and a lot of citizens came out, so I appreciate everybody coming out and participating. And then the arborist tree assessment report, our tree and shrub list is updated, which is fantastic. Brad worked real hard on that. Appreciate your hard work. Our consultant has also begun doing the windshield survey of downtown, so we'll have a light analysis of the health of our tree canopy and point out anything that may be in imminent danger to us over the next couple weeks. We also, as of Friday afternoon, we received 5 submittals from our RFQ for our downtown regional stormwater plans. So we'll get started on that. That's going to be headed up by Bobby Williams and David Pete. And then as Ethan just pointed out, showed you a much better graphic than mine of the landscape on the traffic circles that's going on. So that's an update of what's going on downtown.
If you'll click one more. Yeah. Well, the next slide is just all the reminders of the ways that you can connect with us. We're having a little bit of technical issues with our clicker right now, trying to get that resolved. But so just as a reminder, you can find us on our website. You can download the town app, connect with us on social, or subscribe to our newsletter through public input. And we have a new home button on the homepage of our website that links people straight to where they can subscribe to the newsletter to drive traffic to that. So any questions?
Ferguson?
Just a quick question, because I'm not sure. The first graphic of the landscape design for the roundabouts, is that available on our website for people to look at?
Not right now, but I can certainly make it that way.
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks.
Dumas?
Brian, is there anything we can share that's ready to share in regards to some of the exciting new businesses coming to the town that are, I know there's a couple that have already been announced, maybe just go over those ones again? Just
Well, you can see on here, Golden Cow Creamery, they're still waiting to find a co-tenant before they start construction, but we've been in contact with their team over there at number 5, that's Walk 23. You'll see a number of those townhomes being built in the cottages as well. I believe they do have a tenant it's going to be upfit for the Yellow House. I think there was an article in the paper. I haven't seen the permits yet, so
oh, gotcha. Okay, that's the one I was looking for.
Yeah, no, and then we are, and I do know the folks over at North State are in discussions with a number of tenants for their commercial space downstairs in the mixed-use building. So a lot of activity, a lot of energy, lots of phone calls. With the purchase of the Red Line, I anticipate more and more inquiries over the next couple months.
Okay, we'll move to item 6, public comments. We'll begin with Amy Hallman. Ms. Hallman, you have 3 minutes.
Amy Hallman, Huntersville. Okay. Ready. On Tuesday morning at 3 a.m., we had a medical emergency. We called 911 medic after about 30 minutes of making sure that was the right thing to do. The dispatcher told me that I had to talk to a nurse to determine the type of arrival we were going to get. That would be an ambulance, was what I thought. What kind do I want? Atrium, Novant. In that moment, I'd take any first responder showing at my door this was my child, but no, tick-tock. The first nurse didn't answer. Medic came back on and told me this was required protocol that I speak to a nurse first to determine. I don't know how. I don't know. I may have nearly blacked out here from stress, and she transferred me to a Novant nurse. After several questions, she assessed that indeed we needed a medic with emergency, and dispatch actually made her repeat that. What? The process took 20 more minutes. My son was scared, and we were too. At this point, no medic had even been routed. None. Lee and I took turns sitting with our son and standing on the front porch with the door wide open at 4 a.m. Maybe we're spoiled because we've been used to, our fast first responders, our fire department that used to be here before we finished dialing 911, and we were used to that. But we've been having that for decades. But we could hear no sirens, no sounds at all, no vehicles. It was eerily quiet, and we were alone. Still stunned, I called 911 back, and they said that it had been 7 minutes since dispatched. They arrived, a medic arrived at 4:03 a.m., and they did recommend then that he go to the hospital. They said they could take him, or they could help put him in the car. Our son couldn't stand. I know we took and by the way, he's 6'4" and 180 pounds. I know we took requiring first responding off of the fire department's plate, and I just like calling 911 for police matters, just any kind of police matter. I gotta hurry. And I certainly feel like I know what a dang emergency is. My mother died of a brain aneurysm, and my father died in a gym working out when he was 60 years old. And my grandmother had Alzheimer's and was in the ER frequently with fractures. My son is okay, but when dispatch said keep him on his side and make sure he doesn't have a seizure, that to me confirmed emergency right away. With while they deal with all kinds of frightened and harried people routinely, calling 911 should be the emergency. We are people with emergencies. We are not line items in a spreadsheet. We are callers, should not be forced to consult a third party to ascertain our need. I did post this on Save Downtown, and I will forward you some of the other responses. I was surprised that they were not unlike our situation. I was quite scared by that. But I just feel like, please bring in medic and have them do a presentation about what their call responses are, because it was terrifying.
Sorry, thank you, Amy. Our next speaker is Luz Rosenfeld. Ms. Rosenfeld, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Luz Marina Rosenfeld. I live in 13415 in Stateville Road, Huntersville, North Carolina, 28078. I'm an international activist in which I actually take care of people that are with special needs. My request today is in reference of sidewalks where I live in Arden. It's Arden for 55 and older community, in which we do not have any sidewalk from the right or from the left. And my dog and me do a lot of walking, and the dogs, as you know, that they are, guide dogs do not trend grass, they trend what you call sidewalks, and that's how they are trained to walk. And that's the way that I actually walk around. And I have another request is in reference to transportation. The transportation here called STS, which is special transportation for people with disabilities that are blind, deaf, or seniors that do not drive, it stops half a mile from Huntersville. And I would like to make a request and see if that's possible to create awareness in reference of people that cannot drive or cannot get any type of transportation. You do have here places that they come, you schedule them, they come 4 hours late, or they don't show up. If you call Lyft or if you call Uber, guess what? They see me with a guide dog, they just take off. They just do not help. So I wanted to know if that's something that we can put in the agenda, or you already have some type of plans in reference to do sidewalks or to create any type of transportation that will pick seniors or people that are disabled in front of their door here because I know that there isn't any here. I come from a town called Florida, Doral, in which I did sidewalks, ramps, things for people that have disabilities, like anything that they will need, it was provided for them in reference to transportation, if they need sidewalks, if they need ramps for wheelchairs. And in here, I noticed that you are building the city, so maybe this is on your plan. I'm not sure if this is included, but where I live, Arden, you are like a block and a half away from the right and from the left to actually, for me to walk. And I just want to create awareness. There is people that are blind that need that kind of thing here. In Florida, the whole city was surrounded with the bus, a trolley that would pick us up in front of our door. I actually made that request, and they did it. The city is now about 21 years old. When I moved there, it was starting, and they put all that into project to
Ms.
start.
Rosenfeld, your time is up, but thank you for
All
sharing that.
right, thank you.
We will be in touch with you about that.
Is there any possibility that I can say anything else?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Michelle Pace. You also have 3 minutes.
My name is Michelle Pace. I live at Huntersville Commons apartment complex. Mine is about a 911 response. Mine was actually law enforcement because of gunshots, to the point that I had my 15-year-old hide in the bathroom. It took at least 5 minutes for a live person to come on so I could tell them what I needed. And then when they responded, when I told them where I live, they go, "We got to send you to Huntersville PD." I had to wait another minute or two. They informed me when somebody else came back on, they're going like, "You weren't supposed to be transferred. We take those calls." Went through the process. I said it took about 5 to 8 minutes to finally get to what needed to be done. I'm one of these ones, I grew up here, I grew up around guns. I do not call 911 unless it's a true emergency. But to the point that my child was scared to stay home by herself today, and she's 15 years old. And to the point that she wants to learn how to shoot a gun to defend herself. Like I said, I grew up here. I'm sad to see how this town has gotten to where it takes so long for somebody to come on 911. It wasn't like that when I was growing up. I will say this, Huntersville PD was wonderful about response time. I'm grateful that considering I live near construction on Gilead, I have no issues with them. It's the 911 response time I have issues with. Something needs to be done. Because when you have children wanting to learn how to shoot to defend themselves, something's wrong. Thank you.
Item number 7 is agenda changes of the agenda. We have a motion to adopt the agenda.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries unanimously. Item number 8 is the adoption of consent agenda. May I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Motion to adopt consent agenda.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Item number 9A, conduct a public hearing on petition R24-09 Town Center General Rezoning. Mr. Richards?
.409 Town Center. This is a general rezoning. As you can see on the map, there are 4 property owners who have applied for a general rezoning from neighborhood residential to town center. This is approximately 3.12 acres located just west of the intersection of 115 and Gilead Road. Go ahead. This area in the 2040 community plan is called out to be town core and mixed-use centers. That's where you get, most intense uses in this 2040 community plan. Again, pretty straightforward, mixture of uses, different types of land, all things we're very familiar with, lots of the construction that's going on downtown now. Go ahead. Additionally, one of the other things that's called out in the community plan, the 2040 community plan, is the different tiers. Most of these properties are located in the downtown Tier 2. As you can see, there's generally 2 to 3 stories, predominantly residential with some small-scale commercial. As this is a general rezoning, we do not have specific plans for these 4 properties. Each of those 4 would need to come in if they choose to redevelop, and they would be subject to all the rules of the zoning and subdivision ordinance. So this would rely on the backbone of those documents. Go ahead. On the downtown master plan, the 22 master plan, you can see those areas are also called out in the gathering notes. These are areas of interest, as you can see, just west of the intersection. Those were envisioned to develop over time. We're getting some interest now, and again, with the purchase of the red line, I think we're going to see more and more interest in these areas. So these are just the pioneers, these pioneer projects. I know Dave Hill had spoke about in the past. Here we are. I think the future got here a little bit quicker than some folks thought. So we go on to the next one. As you can kind of see what's already been going on, you can see on the north side, you've got the post office. As we move east, you've got the Walk 23, which is a mixed-use and commercial development. Then we have the school, and on the north side, adjacent to the 760 Brewery is one of the parcels. And we'll go back down to the south. You've got multiple office uses. We have an approved multifamily development, some additional mixed-use buildings, then a transition again to homes that have converted over to offices. On the corner, you have the architect and design firm that did a change of use. Oop, you go back, you're good. And then we have a residential building, and then we have a home that's been converted over to a school, which is now operating as a business. And then you have the white home that's in disrepair. And then, of course, you have got the mixed use, the North State project that's going on there, and then, of course, Huntersville Town Center. So you can see this corridor has quickly transitioned over from a residential corridor to a mixed-use corridor, and we envision that becoming more intense over time. So some folks had asked me a question earlier about why not come in with individual conditional district rezonings. Those can be viewed on the development committee as a barrier to entry. So removing that just by zoning to the base town center district invites some potential projects that would not come before because maybe a smaller developer or a mom and pop don't have the assets or funds to come and go through that whole 6-month or a year-long process. They get a conditional district rezoning. Staff is comfortable with this proposal. There's a number of reasons to support that in the 2040 community plan as well as the downtown plan. And we're comfortable with the strength and barriers that we have in those ordinances to get good development that would protect the residents and surrounding businesses in that area. And we're here to support this, and I'm here if you guys have any questions on this.
Board, are there any questions? Commissioner Dumas?
Can you talk a little bit about some of the specific differences in the different zonings? So like
Sure,
sound
absolutely.
ordinances or, business hours, building height, things like that?
Sure. Business hours, we don't have any restrictions on those. Those could come out of a conditional district rezoning. And just to speak on that, if any of these folks wanted to redevelop and they wanted something that wasn't permitted in those uses, they would need to come back for a conditional rezoning to ask for a modification to that standard. We have strong buffers, so if you were to come in and put an apartment building or something in there, depending on the density, you might have a larger buffer as opposed to a smaller type building. So in the neighborhood residential district, you're allowed bed and breakfast, you're allowed boarding rooms, you're allowed congregate cares facilities, family care homes, single family. You're also allowed commercial uses in a mixed-use building, and you're also allowed full commercial uses in a detached building type within a quarter mile of the town center, which all these properties fall within. So that's by right now, no changes today. As you can see, some of those have already happened, especially with the offices across the street and the former daycare school. In town center, you can again do bed and breakfast inns, you can do boarding rooms, you could have civic, fraternal, and community clubs. You can have full commercial uses as you do now. It would be in a different style building. You can also have the same thing as family care homes, government buildings. You could do a hotel. Again, the size of these properties are smaller, so you're not going to be looking at large buildings. Building heights, they vary. We do have a massing and scaling part of our ordinance that would restrict these. So if you have a single story building, 2 stories is probably what you're going to get next door. Again, with these buildings, these parcels being the size that they are, they're not going to be conducive to 3- and 4-story buildings. You can't park them. You can't fit all of the infrastructure that you need for stormwater and those types of things on these parcels. Sure.
Commissioner Bergsman?
I kind of want to go back a bit again to the differences between the two zonings. So for something like amplified music or live music, is there a difference between the two?
If you were, no, I mean, you could have that in both of the situations. Again, we would rely on the town's nuisance ordinance and Chief Graham and his staff to moderate those types of issues.
And is there any possibilities of having a multifamily project that would not have commercial if this?
Yes, and in matter of fact, just down the street in neighborhood residential, you have that down just near the orthodontist office and the Charlestown building. You have an approved multifamily building there right now. It hasn't been built, but it is able to be built. And you would have the same situation over here.
So hypothetically, because I know with the downtown master plan, there's a lot of talk, and with North State, of having commercial on the first floor, looking at residential above, but that is not a requirement, so, okay.
If you offered a mixed-use building, then you could have all commercial downstairs or non-residential downstairs and residential upstairs. And again, with the size of these parcels, it's pretty restricted. The one to the north is a little bit larger at 1.7 acres. You're not going to get a large building up there. Parking, market rates. We have lower parking standards than what market drives. Parking's going to be the big restriction on these lots.
And then I believe at least one of these parcels has either, the whole house is either designated historic, or there's like historical components to it. I'm thinking of the,
Not to my knowledge.
maybe I'm wrong, I'm thinking of the Henson Foley, the White House with
I
the,
am sorry, you are correct. They did go through that whole, we did that not too long ago. Been a while, so I did not participate in that one. Yes, they have historic designation.
okay, so does that, for a house that does have historical designation, I mean, is there anything that would change, that they would be?
No, they're going to
Everything would
continue
stay
to
the
operate
same.
as the office. I did speak to Mr. Henson this afternoon, and they said they have no intention of converting that over anytime soon. Maybe a restaurant one day further down the line, but that would not change. Those are all uses that are allowed. The historic is more like the aesthetic of the building, and they went through and did all of their change use and did all of their infrastructure work, shoring up that building prior to getting that designation. So anything afterwards, if anybody wanted to make aesthetic changes to that building, they would need to go through the historic committees as well.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Hunt?
So there was a concern from a resident about the general zoning simply because they didn't know what would go in that site. So do the folks wanting to rezone have any interest in maybe talking to the homeowner next to them to say, like, this is kind of the idea we're toying with, just to?
Oh, sure. We always encourage folks before they go through those change of uses to talk to their neighbors. I do know there has been some conversations, but we can always encourage more discussions as well. I know everybody received an email from the one property owner, the former bed and breakfast. There are no plans. If there are plans, we will definitely get them in touch with those folks. And of course, everything's public record, and I'd be more than happy to reach out for folks when applications do get turned in.
Any other questions? Commissioner
The
Bergsman?
applicants, are the applicants giving any kind of presentation, or?
The former bed and breakfast, correct, yes. Mm-hmm. Oh, my apologies. Our other pointer was missing, so it's here. But yes, that's the former bed and breakfast right there. I don't see anybody here this evening.
None of the applicants are here this evening?
I do not see that.
No.
Oh. Okay. Okay.
Right, we have a handful of public comment on this public hearing. We will begin with Elaine Kearns. You have 3 minutes, Ms. Kearns.
Hi, good evening. I'm Elaine Kearns. I am coming to you today or tonight as a citizen of Huntersville, a downtown resident, and a previous member of the Downtown Planning Steering Committee. I would like to strongly urge you all to deny this rezoning request for the following reasons. There are no concept plans, as was just discussed, for the particular parcels in question. Given such a critical downtown location, I believe the responsible thing to do would be to know what the property owners plan to do with the parcels before approving any rezoning requests that would give them carte blanche. I would encourage each one of you to further look into the differences between the TC and the NR zoning. I would really encourage you to do that. We are going to have 800 plus new residences in this downtown area. They're currently being built. When they're all occupied, this will more than double the number of residences in Greenfield Park alone. And of course, I'm thinking about traffic and cars and hundreds more cars in the downtown area. It's easy to have a failure of imagination because they're not here yet. Can we please wait until we can see and experience this reality before opening the door for even more density, because it would, and therefore more cars on these streets? Also, this is something that I just thought about. How might a TC rezoning, which would allow higher housing density along Gilead Road, how might that affect the town's plan to make this road conducive to a safe and walkable corridor to and from downtown? I don't know if it would impact it at all, but it was just a question that came to mind. That's all. Just, again, please deny this. This can be revisited later after everything is built and we know what we have here, after we have the town hall, new businesses, and a whole lot more people and cars down here. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Robert Kearns. Mr. Kearns, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Clark and board members. Good to see you. My name is Robert Kearns. I live at 301 Hillcrest Drive, which is in the Greenfield Park neighborhood, about 2 blocks from the properties that we're discussing in this petition. Some of you may know me as Bob Kearns, man about town, who fruitlessly searched for the light rail downtown transit station. The only thing left of my search is high-density zoning that was related to being within a quarter mile of the non-existent station. I'm still looking for it. Don't worry. I'll get back to you. Now, first, this is important. None of my comments should be construed as criticism of my friends Martha and Francis, to the petitioners. Both our families have a long history of friendship and loyalty to this town. So it's not about that. No, my concern is for transparency and due process in town governance. So you may be familiar with the term cart before the horse, okay? Things should be in a certain order. How about pig in a poke, okay? Any farmer would tell you, don't buy livestock you haven't seen yet. I think we're in a condition like that. We don't know what's coming. We don't know what the plans are. Wouldn't this board like to see the plans for these parcels before voting to rezone it for higher density? I know I would. I suspect that some entity already has fairly detailed plans for these parcels, probably yet more apartments to further overwhelm our already inadequate infrastructure. Now, as my wife mentioned, there are already about 800 new residences that are in work right now. I think before considering rezoning to a higher density again, which causes additional stress, maybe we'd like to see what the effect is of the ones that are already been approved. In general also, I think we need to show a little more imagination, a little more care for posterity in our development of our town. How do we make our town more walkable and bikeable? Where are the agreeable common areas with trees and maybe a water feature? I suggest that all of the world's best loved and most vibrant cities have chosen to make such investments. Examples, Amsterdam comes to mind. Any town in Bavaria, most of them in France. For heaven's sakes, have you been to Paris? Downtown, there's trees growing along every single street. We don't look like that. We look like an industrial area by comparison. But I digress. I ask you to please deny this rezoning at this time. Let's see the proposal first, then vote. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have Amy Hallman, and I see you have Jamie Weidman and Amber Kovacs are here, and you've yielded your time to her. Thank you. All right, so Amy has 9 minutes.
Okay, Amy Hallman of Huntersville, and I'll wait on the time. Okay. When the SNL writer was charged with writing the all-important opening skit to help Kamala Harris over the goal line, he or she probably felt enormous pressure. Since the surprise mailing of R2409, I too have felt enormous pressure, like it all rests on me. And while I may not be your first choice of resident to speak, my heart is 100% with Huntersville. I show up, I put my name on it, and I mean well. Please don't hold my ADHD against me. First, nice decision to buy Cashin's and to continue Town Hall. 760, Huntersville Ice Cream Shop has, and many other stores have done a great job to start growing our downtown. I'd like to remind you that I was a big supporter of the Golden Cow Project, Walk 23 on Gilead, and even North State's Maxwell Street townhouses. I showed up then too and supported these and even took flack for each one of those. Tonight, I'm asking you to deny the particular rezoning petition 2409. On the surface, it may be easier for the planning staff to rezone multiple parcels at one time, especially without specific plans, but that is not the right idea for our downtown. Please ask yourself and others, why do this? Why this way? This request is wrong as a group because they are raggedly pieced together. There is no flow. Require the petitioners to break up the requests to individual ones and consider them individually only with site plans. Use conditional rezonings only. I don't know why this wasn't presented. If not, you will remove almost any say that you as a board has in what can and should go there. And because Gilead is the gateway to downtown in Huntersville, according to the Downtown Master Plan, input is necessary, crucial. Each parcel needs to be considered individually because building a downtown is delicate work. Rezoning from neighborhood residential to town center allows for the highest residential density and the broadest allowances of commercial options, much more than NR. TC, once approved, does not require any further board approval for specific projects. Buffers, tree safe, gone. I couldn't figure out why 106 was included in this petition at first. As part of Parks and Rec's wish list, 106 doesn't need to be rezoned. And as a single-family home being rezoned to a single-family home, it doesn't need to be rezoned. And with no listed plan for what that property might be in the agenda or online, what made the most sense? So I reached out to North State and just asked what their plans were for 106. And he said to me he's waiting to see what happens with this rezoning request first. This morning I opened my email and to see that property owners at 108 Gilead confirmed to you that North State is involved. Why are they not included in this petition? They're certainly an important part of this equation. According to the previous planning director, NR zoning was created to allow addition of some commercial businesses within the residential homes and feather into or out from TC while also operating with respect to existing residences. The interesting thing is none of these applicants have any immediate need for such a rezoning. 121 already operates within 100% within NR zoning. They immediately began a beautiful restoration. They are on the historic register, and they have no immediate plan to change what they're doing, so why rezone? 115 and 117 Gilead are land development clients of applicant at 121 Gilead, and they have submitted no plans nor site projects. 115 has always been a single-family residence, and trash receptacles inside were or are used to cat train. There's been no new roof put on this house. In 2020, North State tried to buy 115 from Ms. Carroll as part of their town center project. They couldn't come to terms on that price. 117 Gilead has the most recently operated as a successful daycare, 100% within ordinances of NR, and it has been vacant since June of 2022. 117 has no new submitted plan, and 121 is content. Why do this? Is the purpose of rezoning 106, 115, and 117 to TC to benefit North State more the sum of the parts of the listed applicants? If they want to build true mixed use with at least 50% retail and commercial on some of these properties, it may be a good idea. But if they buy 106 Gilead, maybe they don't need 115 and 117, and vice versa. But if we generally rezone all these parcels to TC, just in case, we as a town and you as a town board will have no say, and we will miss the opportunity to have the 2040 community plans, DT8, preserve and celebrate, and DT11, mixed type of residences. 106 Gilead is 1.7 acres. The right person could come along and buy it to restore even as a museum or some park and rec land, but if it is rezoned to TC now, the property value alone will seal that house's demise. Only a residential developer could afford that then, not unlike what's happening to our farmland. The property is family-owned, full of Huntersville history, inherited by out-of-town siblings. Yes, they have property rights, but why is there no developer here when North State is clearly interested in it? So let's talk about 117 Gilead. It sits fully beside and in front of residential property and the Greenfield Park neighborhood. While his application says his current use is daycare, it is not. According to an email I received from planning staff, 117 Gilead was granted a change of use in April 2024 for a restaurant, and not a Pint and Page as the sign in the yard currently reads. So which is it? A beer garden, a restaurant, a Pint and Page, a resale? I don't know, and you don't either. Why isn't the change of use online? Some are. Rezoning 117 Gilead to general TC allows him by right to have a beer garden, an outside business with more noise than inside businesses, which is what he originally said he wanted to put there, with outside drinking, music, and activities until the wee hours of the morning, all at 30 feet outside my bedroom windows. And he will have no restrictions almost, including the time of day the trash truck can collect from his dumpster. Within NR zoning, in which he purchased this property in 2022, he cannot operate outside those walls of his building except his front porch, which makes sense among residences. This parcel alone is clearly its own rezoning petition. Two addresses in the middle of all this, 108 and 119, which is my house, do not want to be rezoned, but they will still be negatively affected. Also, 108 was completely gutted and restored, and 119, my house, is currently under renovation. This is not the case for 106, 115, and 117. Why this rezoning? There is no site plan for 106, 115, 117, nor 121, not even a concept of a plan. While this isn't required for a general rezoning, they're asking you to rezone based on speculation. I am not a speculation. Actual physical renovation is happening at 119 Gilead and happened at 108 and 121 Gilead to boost the beauty and the value of our downtown. While the staff report doesn't convey the parcel's history, it's necessary. I have no more time tonight to discuss that, so I will email and post those histories of these houses I'm talking about, but suffice it to say, 106, 108, 115, 119, and 121 are historic to Huntersville and Mecklenburg County history, even if not designated. And we know Doc Craven's house became our Greenway Trailhead when the 2019 Town Board voted to demolish it. It's been a difficult public hearing to prepare for. Juggling all these different and varied parcels as a resident and concerned citizen further confirms that dropping this general rezoning on us was a blitz offensive call. I hope you recognize how many moving parts there are to consider or to miss with such a petition. If you wonder why more residents don't come out, this could be the reason. It is simply too much to take on at a single time. Where do you even start? Recently, this board commended Jake Palillo and the Northbrook residents for working together for a decent compromise for Northbrook storage. Jake made many concessions, and some on the fly during public comments. Developer concessions were made by Hotel Ventures of Lake Norman, Long Creek Entertainment, and certainly residences in both these areas made concessions. If you approve this general rezoning, you will be disallowing the compromise to happen here. In 1920, my great-great-grandmother, Mary Rogers, inherited a piece of what is now 106 Gilead Road. She sold her interest and bought our house at 119 Gilead. When my renovation is complete, our son will be the 6th generation to live in that family home. Will that plan change? It might, but I'm not asking the town to get involved until I do know. I'm doing my part until then, and I'm showing good faith. Is it done? Okay, I have about 5 more sentences, but that's okay. Please separate it and deny it. Happy birthday, Lee. Thank you.
Thank you. Lee, you're up next. And you, Kevin Weidman, I see you've ceded your time to him. Okay. Lee, you'll have 6 minutes.
Are we ready? Lee Holman, downtown Huntersville. Good evening, Town Board, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here to reason against the general rezoning of the 100 block of Gilead Road from neighborhood residential to town center. There are 6 properties in this area, the 4 on the application and 2 that do not support being rezoned. The 2 against rezoning are active residences that would be engulfed by and subjected to the externalities that come with the more intense commercial development afforded by town center zoning. I'm asking that you reject this request and ask the applicant and owners or potential owners to come back with an application for conditional rezoning so that each project can be vetted by the town staff and boards. This being the 100 block of Gilead Road makes it the welcome sign to downtown. As such, we must continue to be careful with the development that happens along the corridor. So far, we've done just that. 760 Brewing got the ball rolling as we've owned the property, allowing us to choose the business we desired. Some might argue that the town center project provided the necessary density to support more retail and restaurants. You have decided to opt out of NCDOT's widening of Gilead Road to keep our downtown from becoming a major thoroughfare. We must continue that diligence by using our rezoning process to ensure that we get exceptional results and as these properties develop. Recall that neighborhood residential zoning was created along this corridor to allow property owners to convert their residences to businesses without having to go through major structural changes. That process has worked well so far. Granting general town center zoning could strip the town board's input into the development of those properties. For a by right build, staff and town boards would not see anything until the bulldozers arrived. Beyond that, any modifications to our design standards would be administrative, and again, town boards would not see that. If the idea, as many suspect, is to soften the zoning with this action, then when a project plan is required, our only input would be minor. A buffer here, a fence there, with no material influence over what's being added to our downtown. We will find ourselves resigned to the, well, okay, it could be worse decision. We use that much too often already. At least it's not more apartments or storage units or another bar. You get the idea. Let's look at each property individually. 106 Gilead, beside 760 Brewing, is owned by 2 sisters that live in Concord and has been vacant for 20-plus years. 2 acres of prime property and an historic house that could be saved, but with general town center zoning, is likely to be torn down for higher density housing. Across the street, you have 115 Gilead, vacant for 2 years, bought by a local food truck vendor with the intent on putting a kitchen in there, only to discover structural problems that make it now a tear down, with TC zoning more marketable to an active developer. Also vacant for 2 years is 117 Gilead that was once a preschool. We know the owner has a change of use to a restaurant for this property, which is allowed in the current zoning of NR. We also know that this owner, with the help of staff, initiated this rezoning due to one factor that he desires that is not allowed in NR, outside consumption of goods and services beyond the front porch. In particular, alcohol sales, as indicated by the coming soon sign on the property. A property that is, again, 30 feet from a residential bedroom at 119. The last property is the applicant's own and currently houses an engineering business with no intention to change anytime soon. So why are we doing this? Are we willing to give up a chance of having input into the development of this block? Do the residents stand to gain anything in return for taking down these barriers? Have no doubt that this is simply a real estate speculation exercise. This enhances the property value of these 4 lots
It increases the revenue generating potential of those properties by adding more intense commercial uses like hotels and nightclubs that can be built by right. Why would we administratively grant that value without having a solid set of plans, a commitment from the applicant? The applicant will likely give you some ideas of what the intended use of these properties is, but again, don't be distracted by a concept of a plan. Let's have him come back with conditional rezoning and site plans for this potentially iconic block of downtown. Let's not let our brand be, well, it could have been worse. In closing, a general rezoning with no plan, no commitment is effectively giving away any influence we might have over this area in downtown in direct opposition to 2040 Plan Policy EV 1.3, protecting strategic development sites. We won't get what's best for downtown, we'll get what's most profitable for the developers. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do you have any further questions for staff board? Okay. We'll go on to item 9B. Conduct a public hearing on petition R24-05, Hillco Skilled Nursing Facility. Mr. Priest, you're up.
Good evening. Good to see everyone tonight. Enter my staff report into the record. Yeah, thank you. Give hand signals. I don't know which ones to do, but just keep close watch. They'll be subtle. Thank you. Yeah, so R2405, Hillco Skilled Nursing, is a conditional rezoning that we're looking at today. The property in question is here in the Huntersville Business Park on Reese Boulevard East. It's on the east side of the park adjacent to I-77. They're looking for a rezoning from corporate business to campus institutional conditional district. So this is a similar zoning that Novant Hospital is currently zoned as well. Just a little bit of background on that. So they're looking to do a congregate care facility, and that's essentially a skilled nursing facility, or some call it a nursing home, some call it extended stay services for nursing situations there. So and we can talk a little bit about that if you have any questions on it. Next slide, please. Just to get a little bit of an overview of the site, here's on the top left is the aerial. So a lot of trees. There is a creek. If you see on the bottom right, you see a lot of, in the brown shaded area is floodplain that cannot be built upon. And overlaid onto that plan is their plan. So it's a very tight site that they're trying to put things on here. Next slide, please. So here's the site plan that has been submitted for review. A few details. It's a one-story building, 72,000 square feet. It would have 110 beds for people who need nursing assistance. We talked a little bit about the floodplain limits, and just a note about the Huntersville Business Park, because this does come into play. Generally, the Huntersville Business Park was approved in 1986. So the ordinance that applies for by right development, if someone came and just wanted to build an office building, they would go from the rules from the 1991 Huntersville zoning ordinance. So a lot of things in the current ordinance would not apply. However, because the use of congregate care is not permitted in the old zoning ordinance, the applicants are seeking to come rezone the property to allow the new use. That also opens up the new zoning requirements from the ordinance. So that's something very particular to this application. So I wanted to just give you another highlight in regard to where the building is in relation to the floodplain that is shown here in green that cannot be built upon. So obviously, when you look at a commercial building or you look at the other skilled nursing facilities in Huntersville, those buildings are usually up on the street. They're front the street, the parking is in the back. Well, in this situation, that's not really possible, right? Because of the floodplain, they can't build in it. So we worked with the applicant to do an alternative frontage. The zoning ordinance allows buildings to front on urban open spaces, public spaces, in addition to public streets. So try to get a little creative. There's a private drive that goes back to a very large roundabout that is simply sidewalks and grass right now. So the applicant has agreed to take that roundabout and turn it into an urban open space, a place where people can walk, go out and sit, and enjoy nature, do some landscaping on it, and turn it into a nice plaza. And so that would be their frontage condition that they would be fronting on in this application. So that's very unique to this application too, and staff is looking forward to working on that as well. So next slide, please. Just a slide to emphasize and zoom in to the alternative frontage. Currently it's grass with a couple sidewalks, but as you can see, they're wanting to put landscaping, seating, and sculptural shade elements that you can sit under, almost artistic in nature. So it would be very unique to the business park and be a complement to both of the buildings, to the right and to the left. Next slide, please. So we are working with the applicant on a few things that need clarification. On the bottom of the slide, I can get into those, but the top ones, because of the floodplain, there are many modifications that the application is asking for from the ordinance through the conditional rezoning plan. So again, the ordinance says that if you do a conditional rezoning and the applicants go above and beyond, they do excellent design, they do this and that, they might need some flexibility from the ordinance. And so that's what they're asking. So from the staff report, staff outlined the reasons for those modifications. Be happy to answer any questions you have about those. Don't want to go into all of them at this point right now. The alternate frontage, one thing we do want to work with the applicant on, and we have discussed with them, is making sure that alternate frontage, the urban open space, the adjacent property owner, who it goes onto their property a little bit, is willing to work with the applicant on building it and maintaining that. So that's still a question that we just want to make sure it's feasible to actually do what we're proposing to do, right? The uses proposed, change the uses, narrow them down to the skilled nursing facility. Why is that important? Because the skilled nursing facility, as the applicant is probably going to come up and talk about, they are going to have a lot of medical jobs added to this facility. And that's important in an employment-generating business park. And we'll talk a little bit about the 2040 plan. The 2040 plan calls this an employment generation area. So having that employment generation is important. Uses in the CI district can range from universities to churches to schools, where you don't really have a lot of that. So narrowing up the uses just to make sure what's proposed with the employment generating medical facility would be the one that's actually going to be built to meet our 2040 plan recommendations. Tying up some building elevations, making sure the very unique and modern building elevations are committed to. We'd like to work with them on that. And then, as mentioned in the aerial, there's a greenway that's actually going to go along the frontage, a town greenway along the frontage. So looking for, at minimum, an easement. So when the town is ready to build that greenway, we can go in and build it. Or if we're, again, the town board is looking for an opportunity for more public benefit or excellent design, the applicant could build that. And there is some willingness, I believe, on the applicant's behalf to do that, so they might talk to you about that as well. Next slide. Where are we with the recommendations on the 2040 plan? Again, this parcel is in the Employment Center future land use recommendation, and so that's what you would expect for the Huntersville Business Park. There's a lot of policies from the 2040 plan that really hit the mark for this application. Won't go into them all, but I mentioned land use policy 1.1, using that map, having a use that is going to encourage employment in Huntersville, and certainly they're going to do that with the information that they submitted with a lot of nursing jobs. Also want to touch on land use 8.2. Instead of just putting a buffer along the street and calling it a day, they're saying, well, how can we make this use really kind of like a Huntersville use and front on something unique and be pedestrian oriented? So they're taking that roundabout and upgrading it. So that's going above and beyond in that way. So Staff believes that this proposal is consistent with the Huntersville 2040 plan. Recommendation, staff recommends approval with those note clarifications. There are a lot of bullet points there, but many of them can be fixed with just an alternate note. So staff is recommending approval. The planning board is scheduled for 11/20/24 to make their recommendation. And staff recommends approval of the modifications that are in the plan as well. So that ends the presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Board, any questions? Commissioner Hunt?
Can you talk more about Stormwater Administrator Rusty Rosel's opinion and how this won't affect the floodplain?
So the applicant has to get some modifications, and working with the engineering department, how I understand it, is two things that the engineering department is looking at. One, the applicants are having a lot of problems with the topography to get the water that does fall to go in the appropriate location. And it's very flat, so it's been difficult to get it, to put it in a pond, to filter it, and then put it in the stream. So that's part one. There's difficulty there. Part two, going back to where we are with the Huntersville Business Park. So none of the Huntersville Business Park, nowhere do they have water quality devices because they're vested. And so if someone came and just built an office building here that was approved under the old code, there would be no water quality. All the water would go straight to the stream. So in this situation, the applicants are treating maybe about half, 40 to 50% of the water that's falling, then the rest of it goes to the stream. So from engineering standards, they're saying, hey, we're getting something when before we would have got nothing. So from an environmental standpoint, that was worth getting a recommendation for approval on those modifications, if that helps.
Yeah. So in the staff report, it mentioned that for the, what are you calling it, the roundabout or the plaza, that we're still waiting on permission or approval from the adjacent property owner. Is that something that's still outstanding, or is, because I thought you had said earlier that they may be willing, but feasibility still needs to.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, talking to the applicant, they're researching the cross-access easement that allows them to go on there anyway to see if they can go in and do those improvements, if that's included in the easement. They do want to talk to the property owner about who's going to maintain it, because if they put more sidewalks, they put more landscaping, there's probably going to be an agreement, say, okay, who's going to limb up all the trees? Okay, if the sidewalk breaks, who's going to fix it? Because it's not a public street. This is going to be on private property. So that information that's ongoing, but they're confident that they can do that. And so that's why we just put it in our recommendation. It's something what we want to work on. And then as we go through the process, hopefully we can get that tied up before final approval.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Rivers?
If we could go back a few slides, I think, was it a request, well, looking at this, yes, right here, the current rezoning issues, I know I-77 buffer, was that a recommendation from the board from the town, I'm sorry, to ensure that there is a buffer? Am I understanding that correctly? How, if you don't mind, how close are they to 77 in regards to this buffer? I just want some clarity there.
Yes, so they are proposed to have a 20-foot buffer, so that 20 feet would go right up to the right-of-way of I-77. And the reason why staff is good with that, two reasons: the constraints of the floodplain, really reducing the size of usable area. Well, then three reasons. Two, the business park, again, they haven't buffered anything because they hadn't had to, because the rules for today don't apply. So there really are no buffers. So having any buffer is better than what's adjacent. But then three, with 20 feet, just emphasizing evergreen trees, evergreen shrubs with even 20 feet, staff is confident that we can get an opaque buffer that will function over time and still be operational. And so with those three things, we were okay with the reduction from 50 down to 20 feet.
Any other questions? No more questions? Is the applicant here?
The applicant is here and has representatives, and they have some PowerPoint slides. Go to mine, Ethan. There you go. Thank you. Yep.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you very much, and thank you, Brad, for helping us out through this entire process and stole a lot of my thunder on that presentation. There's our next one. And you can. This slide is to show the surrounding uses in the park. And what you'll see here is a lot of large corporate and industrial users with, the requirements for large building footprints and large parking facilities. So when you have a skilled nursing facility like this, it gives it a little bit more flexibility to fit in some type of property that's a little more constrained. And if we zoom in here, you can see Brad touched on it, the unbuildable area right there. And if you look down, let's see, is this laser here? If you look down in the bottom left, you see the frontage, and there's really no frontage, and that's why we're doing this urban open space here. And as Brad mentioned, one of the comments in his staff report too was that a suggestion to wait until the county designs and builds the greenway, and then what the applicant would do would be to put in that sidewalk right here as a multi-purpose path, a 12-foot multi-purpose path, instead of putting in a 7-foot sidewalk and it not really matching up with the greenway. So that's something that the applicant's willing to do. Here's your helicopter view of the facility, and as you can see, there's a little bit more space in the front for some handicap parking, and then there's also a secured entryway for patients and visitors. And the entire facility is bounded by the urban open space and then I-77 in the back. And now we can zoom in on the entryway, and what this shows here is we have some, architectural elements, some facades, and some like vertical designs in the building, and then we also have some different types of materials that are used. And Brad asked in his staff report and with conversations with us that we provide some examples of materials that we're going to use, and so we are happy to provide that, and we will work with him and provide that. And then here's the roundabout. Here's a little bit different view of kind of what a potential design is. You can see on the left, this is what it is now. It's pretty, burnt out grass and sidewalks. And what we want to do here, like what Brad said, have seating, have other sculptural shade elements, and make a really good walkable pedestrian element and have that be the frontage of the building. And he touched a little bit on the buffer. This is just a little cross section, gives you an idea of what that buffer would look like. The bottom is when it's initially planted, and then the top is at full maturity. And so you can see that this building, this skilled nursing facility, is a one-story building, and compared to the buildings next to it, those buildings are almost 40 feet. And so this, buffer will definitely shield the facility from I-77. And here, I think this is some of the most important information, that the facility is going to create 160 jobs, very important for an employment center. And then according to Huntersville Health and Rehab data, the town's already operating at 90 to 99% of licensed nursing home beds, and so this is a critical need, especially when you look at the Huntersville's growth, you look at the aging population, and you look at the hospital right next door, and you look at the new hospital coming in right down the road. Economic benefits, we have just from construction in Huntersville, we have $30 million in direct and indirect benefits from construction of the facility. And then we're going to have property taxes of close to $70,000 per year. And then as far as the Huntersville 2040 plan is concerned, this is an employment center, and the 2040 plan contemplates institutional uses like this, and for a use that's going to add 160 jobs, it's a great addition to the employment center, and it fits in well with the 2040 plan. And then finally, Brad hit on these, but compatibility with the 2040 plan, it really fits in well with the plan, and would be a great addition to this employment center. And I think you can just go 2 more to the end. And we have our team here. We have Emily Burer from Stimmel, and we have Jonathan Rogers from Principal LTC to answer any questions if you have any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Walsh.
Yeah, we just have a couple of them. I just want to make sure I understand. Staff had asked you to narrow the proposed uses. You're good with that and complying with that? Okay. And also removing the sample elevations so that we know. So you guys are good with that. And then can you walk me through the Greenway thing again?
Right. So on Reese Boulevard right there, we would be required to put a sidewalk on that frontage, on that street frontage. But if you go back to, I think it's like the third slide, keep going, a couple more, keep going, right there. You can see there's like a little dotted line. It comes right here and then it crosses and then it goes down. You can, I mean, there's so many lines going through. Yeah. But and so
of course, that's clear as mud.
So this is where the Greenway is proposed, and that's not official, that's not finalized. And so what we want to do is wait until that's finalized, so we know where the connection is going to be, and then the applicant can build that 12-foot multi-purpose path to fit in with the Greenway connection.
And Brad, we're good with that?
Yes, so the design of the Greenway is currently underway. There's a couple options that staff is looking at where it needs to go, closer to the road, a little bit further back from the road. So what we are looking at is just saying, let's put a note on the plan, just committing it. Doesn't have to be in the right location, but when the Greenway is actually constructed, the applicants are willing to build that multi-use path along their frontage, and then we're good to go. And then they'll do that once the Greenway is actually designed later.
And we would tie that down to a specific amount of time, if they're
Correct.
concurrent with or
Concurrent with and
whatever.
with staff's direction and have the note say exactly that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
What else? Commissioner Bursman?
Hey, I just have one question. So with that urban open space roundabout, there seems to be a couple different names for it. Are there plans to use like pavers or different surfacing to differentiate it and kind of just to give it a bit more of an aesthetic appeal?
We do have plans for that. I'm not sure exactly if you want to share anything.
Yeah, so in the rendering, the sketch rendering that we had a couple different, it showed keeping the sidewalks, but then adding some, either some crushed granite paving to add some textural and sensory differentiation with pavement materials in there, seating, and then different plant materials, ground covers, and trees, trying to keep visibility through there so that it feels like a safe area, though, with kind of an overhead canopy and then low plantings so that it maintains visibility through there.
Okay, so that gray area kind of in the center, and that's representing gravel or some sort?
Yeah, in the circular area in the center.
Okay, thanks.
I assume that this applicant has had to obtain a certificate of need to build a skilled nursing facility in this area. Do we know if that has been done? Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Bursman?
So follow up, because I'm just thinking skilled nursing home, wheelchairs, ADA accessibility. So that's gravel, but the white kind of X, that would be like an ADA accessible so that folks who are ADA or need ADA resources can still utilize that space? Essentially, would it still be ADA accessible?
Yes, any material we would use would be ADA compliant, and the sidewalks that would be maintained there would be ADA compliant. We would add curb ramps in for accessibility to and from that space.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. We're on to item 9C, conduct a public hearing on petition R24-06, Rosedale infill. Mr. Farber?
Good evening, everyone. Okay, so the applicant Antiquity Woods LLC is proposing to rezone 0.186 acres of NRTNDO to NRTNDO-CD. There should be one. Yeah, so this is an aerial view of the proposed property being rezoned. As you can see, to the north of it, there is the existing townhome development and apartments. And to the south, we have the Rosedale Commons shopping center with Harris Teeter. A little background, and the R9812 rezoning was approved in 1999, and this created the current Rosedale mixed-use development. And then later in 2001, Meeting Street Homes submitted R0113. This rezoning amended 3 acres of Rosedale for townhomes, and this included 26 townhomes and 7 live-work units. Today, the R2406 rezoning is proposing to modify those R0113 plans to construct 4 additional single-family attached townhomes on 0.186 acres of vacant common open space, which will bring the total count of the entire development to 37. The rezoning stormwater is being met via the existing Rosedale wet ponds, and the water quality is being met using a buy-down mitigation, and a TIA was not required. And this is just a artistic site plan that the applicant provided us. So the original Rosedale rezoning only required 1 urban open space to be provided, and that exists in the as a forecourt, as you can see here in the red circle. Today's rezoning will not affect that existing required open space, and the subdivision will remain in compliance. And the subdivision's common open space was not a requirement of the previous rezonings. The previous ordinance language just stated that any leftover vacant land be labeled as common open space. The applicant does have 1 modification request to Article 4.11, which states that the building facades are to be generally parallel to the front property lines. The applicant is requesting to front on an urban open space that will not be generally parallel to the public street. Staff is in support of this modification request, as the proposed homes will be oriented towards Ansonboro, which is similar to the existing units, and provide an urban open space that connects the units to the public street. And again, this is the urban open space that is being proposed. It'll provide a sidewalk connection to Ansonboro for the entire development to use. It includes a bench, landscaping, and art piece, and they're planning on using pea gravel as the seating, as the surface below the seating. The parking requirements for residential dwelling units with more than 1 bedroom is 1.5 spaces. The development would require a total of 6 spaces, and the applicant is providing 7 spaces. 1 of those spaces will be located in a garage within one of the townhomes. The parking will be accessed via the existing private alley drives, and the overall Rosedale townhome development will still remain in compliance with its parking standards. And this is the proposed elevations for the townhomes. The proposed units will remain consistent with the overall character of the existing development, which includes its massing and scale, though stylistically the units are proposed to use white hardy board, which is a different material and color than the existing brick, red brick that the existing townhomes are using. So the rezoning site is located within the town core in the Rosedale Mixed Use Center, and is supported by the following policies as noted within my staff report. It is not currently supported by LU 8.2, which asks that a higher design standards be used above the minimum requirements. In order for this policy to support the rezoning, staff is asking that the applicant provide a conditional note on the site plan that states that the existing, gives a formal formalizes the elements of the urban open space. We're asking this, for this in order to ensure that once this is constructed, we get exactly what's on the site plan. And with that, staff is recommended support for this rezoning. We are recommending that as long as that conditional note is added to the site plan. And if you guys have any questions, I can answer that for you.
Any questions? Commissioner Quarles?
Is there a reason the applicant's going with hardy board versus the existing brick?
That'll have to be a question for the applicant, and I do believe they're here to answer questions and provide a presentation. No, do you have, there should be more slides after this. Keep going. Next one. There should be a PowerPoint one after that. Do you have it in the folder? There's not one in there. Okay. He's in there. Okay. Can you go back to? Is there a picture from the?
It's all in pictures.
Yeah. Can you go to the elevations, please? It's the one that says applicant.
Getting close. Keep going. Yeah, if you want to keep going down a few more slides. Well, you can stop right there if you don't mind. Thanks. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Sonny Crater, and I'm here on behalf of Meeting Street Homes and Communities and Antiquity Woods. And to Commissioner Quarles' question, this same setup was done in Antiquity in a very almost identical situation where the townhomes that were surrounding in the original part were the brick, and they used a very nice brick, but they made just a little bit of an accent by putting the two townhomes that they did at that location in the siding. They did use a cement fiber siding or James Hardy siding, which some don't use that, but it's just to provide a little bit of texture change, and certainly materials are every bit as quality as brick. So that's pretty much the reason that they did it. It's the only other thing I would say, and I kind of went through this during COVID, is the bricks that were used at this location, I could no longer get most of them. So it would be pretty difficult to duplicate that exactly. So in this case, if you don't mind going a couple more slides. Well, go back one more. Okay, this sort of, and I have an actual photograph, but this one is actually the rendered one that shows you through that window that you have in that corner where the townhomes with the siding, and I think with the little plaza in front of it, that's really adding a very nice detail to the proposal.
Commissioner Walsh?
It was, nope, you can stay up there. It was mentioned before about this idea of providing a note stating a commitment to formalizing the urban open space. Are you going to provide that?
Yeah, the plaza is the open space, and
So I think he's asking if
Yeah, I believe that was sent to you, but absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
And I think that's the only way to do it, rather than go by pictures.
Okay, so you're committing to doing
Yeah,
that?
yes, yes.
I got it. What's the price point going to be on these?
The price point should be under 300,000, or I mean, it's under 350, which by today's standards is certainly in the affordable category, relatively speaking, yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So with these units being more in the affordable range, what about the HOA fees? Because sometimes those might be cost prohibitive for people who are looking at affordable, so can you
Right.
talk about that?
Well, I think actually, Joe Roy is actually working on the function, and if y'all been involved with affordable housing, that will probably be a little bit different setup than the other three that will be, if you will, market rate that can handle those HOA fees. But I think at the end of the day, and that's something that Joe would have to, he's just trying to work out how to do it, but I'm sure there's going to be some sort of assistance in the overall pricing or payment structure to make that a feasible thing.
Yeah, I want to go back to the hardy siding versus the brick. Is that something, I mean, I understand that you can't access the exact same color and the exact same, but I personally, looking at the designs, feel that I would prefer brick. I don't know about everybody else, but is that something that is still possibly on the table, or are you pretty set on the siding?
Yeah, and I appreciate your point of view, and obviously there's brick's great. I think that one of the challenges in getting these in a price range, and the price difference isn't dramatic, but it's enough that every bit counts. And again, Joe, and I actually kind of acquired this property in 2000, and kind of went through the design and rezoning, and so it's very dear to us, some of the things that we've created, and over the years, even though a lot of time has passed, Joe has always given, the architecture's always been absolutely superb, and if you've looked at Walk 23 that he's currently doing, not just the townhomes that you see facing the street, but the homes facing the back, I think you would agree that they're extremely attractive.
Yeah, and I don't deny that. So I guess maybe, my follow-up to that is, I'm curious with that HOA for townhouse, with the other townhouses being brick. And, one issue that would be different with siding, I mean, I have white siding on my house, and we have red clay in our area. So
Well,
I am very familiar with how
And I've actually
they need to
done
be
quite a bit
maintained.
of construction with that, and you really have to go back once your landscape is established and kind of hit the bottom sections of it. But he will be using a James Hardy Color Plus, which is compared to a regular, just going out there and painting it, lasts far, far longer. And being white, it may be 20 years before you've noticed that it might have faded a little bit.
Does the HOA in that area, would they maintain, I mean, because we have to have ours pressure washed, on a yearly basis. So is that something would be the responsibility of the property owner or the
Well,
HOA for that?
At this point, it has yet to be totally decided that it would be a part of the existing HOA, even though that's, I would think, the likely scenario. And it's not uncommon to have some different elements within the same HOA that may require a little tweak in what their fees are. But there's already some painting, and I'm sure that the windows in these will probably be vinyl as compared, I don't know if you guys have wood now or if you change those, but they won't have to paint the windows, the soffits and fascia and all that would have to be eventually painted. I'm not sure I'm answering directly, but
No,
I'm
you
not
did,
sure there's
yeah.
quite such a direct answer, but
That was good. Yeah, that was good. And then I've got two other things. I saw in at the community meeting, there were some, in the minutes, someone had mentioned about the mailboxes. And I'm just curious where, in relation to these, like the mailboxes that were referenced, where are those located? Because I think it was said that some people currently use this as kind of a cut-through to the mailboxes. And I just wanted to know where they are. I'm assuming there is a path to them
Well,
that could be used alternately.
It's definitely interesting you should say that, because right now, the split between those two buildings, there's a white fence there. And for the purpose, and I'm sure as owners, they feel fine to cut through there, but there perhaps are others from, nearby that are doing that. There's still a way to get there. It's just going to be a little prettier walk than it is right now, so. Let's see if I can find the site.
We're gonna have to go, I think he has it on his
Go back to
PowerPoint.
even the one.
Yeah, just go back 3 or 4, I think.
Shows the parking spaces or whatever.
Yeah, keep going back. That is 1.
Is it showing, it's showing over there to the right of the number 2?
I don't believe that's a mailbox.
Okay, it's near that location. There's somebody here that knows that. It's near. Right, okay.
Okay. So there were very clear alternate paths to get to them. There are very clear alternate paths to get to them. That's kind of what I was trying to get at, an answer to that.
Well, I mean, they certainly can walk, through the, I guess through the grass, which is what it is now. But they'll have sidewalk part of the way. But in our meeting, it seemed that there were probably more that drove by to pick up their mail, but I didn't have a huge turnout, so it's kind of hard to get a big sample size of that.
Commissioner Dumas?
Would you consider adding a path, like a specific path along the side to the mailboxes?
So far, Mr. Roy has been really not wanting to do that. I mean, we've got some drainage things going on that side. And there's still a way to get there. It's just getting closer to the building where that would have to be. It's not totally practical.
It just seems to me that people are going to walk that way anyway, and they already do. So it might be something to consider.
That's something I certainly would have to talk to Mr. Roy about. I know that we have discussed it before, and as we've gone along through some of this process, that really is not part of the motivation. There are several things going on, but we've kind of gone through a process like it was a whole new development and trying to keep some reasonable costs so that we can keep that affordability into it and keep adding to that. I think as we had met prior, that was a concern, but I would certainly ask that of Joe. I certainly can revisit that. And I don't know if you have any light to shed on that in terms of the drainage and whatever, but
The urban open space currently will already have a sidewalk that goes through a portion of the existing private drainage easement.
yeah.
So I would just keep that in mind.
Okay.
Questions? Okay, thank you. We now have a few public comments. First, I will call Brian Warren. Are you still here? You have 3 minutes. Please just state your name for the record.
Madam Mayor, board members, thank you. My name is Brian Warren. My wife Jamie and I are residents on Anson Burrow Square in one of the existing brick townhomes. When we became aware of this, obviously we were curious as to what was going to be proposed, and white hardy plank in a community of existing all-brick townhomes is obviously a concern. These units, one of the four, will have a garage. All of the other existing units have one or two-car garages. Regarding that pedestrian plaza, that's basically access for those four units to be brought in, or to egress in and out of their front doors. One of the more interesting aspects is none of these units are planned to have any sort of rear shielding from their backyard porch. There's no storage without a garage for potted plants, implements, tools. And we've walked neighboring areas where those type townhomes do exist, and it just doesn't really fit with the community as it currently sits. It just feels like, why weren't townhomes put on this common area lot 20 years ago when the development was originally built? And it just feels like we're shoehorning in for units that don't fit architecturally. They're going to have different elevations, frontages, facades, materials, the amenities of garage or not. And so you're going to be coming in through that private drive right into the open rear yards of those four units. They're not going to have privacy for themselves, and we're not going to have privacy from themselves. It's obviously something I would say is unanimously within the residents not desired. I don't know if any of these objections or issues rise to the level of reasons to deny the rezoning petition, but I think that's what I would ask for. It's a nice community. It's all the same. I don't know, I can't find the words for it right now, but I just wanted to come down and state those things. There is the child care center right across that private drive to the west. I don't know what kind of consideration might need to be made for that, but appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jane Gazakis. Hopefully I got close. Please just state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Jane Gazakis, and I'm a Huntersville resident in the Meeting Street Townhomes. I'd like to try and use this top button. Thank you. First, this is not what I came to talk about. I came to talk about these units, but not particular about what I'm going to say right now, which is also the brick facade. We actually have 4 different bricks used as the facades to the original townhomes. So as far as those bricks not being available, a different sort of brick would be better than white hardy board sitting in the middle. Also, and I can't find this, but on the top of this screen is the northern direction. The northern tip of these 4 units, I'm not sure what the setback might be, but there's a lady sitting here whose 3-bedroom condominium has a wall of south-facing windows that are going to be right in the nose of these 4 units, as does another 3-bedroom unit that faces west towards the parking or towards the private drive and the script over here. So they are right on top of that. They're going to be looking out, and like Brian just said, 20 years this lot has been empty. Maybe 2 units would not be as profitable for Meeting Street as developers, but it would certainly be more aesthetically pleasing to the homeowners at this point. What I came to talk about is beyond the southern private drive here, there is what is called a street. It's called Rosedale Meadow. There's no street sign on the east side of Reese Road. We are between Reese Road and Rosedale Hill, and Rosedale Meadow borders this complex on the south side, which is just outside of the private drive here, on the south private drive. Okay, so when I come out of that drive in the morning, here's what's oftentimes there. This is a truck with a big trailer behind it that sits there on the wrong side of the street. We drive on the right side of the street. This is facing west. So I would be driving west, and the people driving east would be face to face with this kind of thing. This is not unusual. This is every morning. Here's a large truck. Harris Teeter, of course, has all their deliveries that go on back there. So here's another one. Facing Reese Road, this truck is, he's on the left side of the street, facing west. We drive on the right side of the street. We would be going west. These people are never ticketed for this. They're always parked there. I mean, it's,
Thank you, ma'am.
it's constant. It starts at 2 in the morning and it's constant. Yes.
Your time is up.
Oh, that was 3 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
One last thing. Harris Teeter's dumpster board, wide open in the middle of this supposed street all the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gee, my 3 minutes went a lot quicker than any developers did.
Next up is Harold Hudson. You still here? You have 3 minutes, and please state your name for the record.
Thank you. I'll try to not take 3 minutes. Harold Hudson. I live at 10019 Ansonboro Square. Have owned that property for 17 years. Been a resident of Huntersville for 37 years, and love Huntersville and love our community. It's a really great place to live. I agree with what Mr. Warren said, and I think I've been the HOA board president for more years than I would like to have been. But I agree that the building materials are a primary concern. There's really no reason, if Mr. Roy was forthright in saying that there's not a big price difference, as he did at the informational meeting, he said that in the meeting, that it wasn't a big difference in the cost. We know that we have different brick on these units, and you can find this brick. There are concerns about privacy, as have been mentioned, the access to the mailboxes. It's a private alley that we pave and maintain. There are already enough problems with traffic, and the lot 34, which is a center lot, and I really appreciate you asking about that, because we found out some years ago, unfortunately, that we didn't own that property. We thought we did. The taxes had not been paid on it in 20 years, and that was quite upsetting to us. So we've been in some dialogue with Mr. Roy over the years about his property and the use of his property. I really think that 4 in there is way too many. The building materials should be changed. I think he has a legal right to build there. I'm not opposed to that at all. But I would urge you to slow the process down until we have some questions answered about how he's going to actually build these. It's a small lot if you go back in there. So I think that's about all I want to say about that. But thanks for your consideration and for listening to us.
Thank you, sir. And lastly, we have Ellie Jensen. Please state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name's Ellie Jensen. I'm a new resident. I'm on the adjacent 3-bed house here. So I would also be looking at the townhomes. So I wanted to come to just strongly oppose the use of this land for further townhomes. As important as everything everyone has said is, and like the disruption to the community, as well as the environmental impacts the project would cause, I do want to point my thoughts in a little bit of a different direction. I know here on the corner, looks bigger than it actually is. It's roughly 0.2 of an acre. I know one of the recommendations is that there's already a green space in the center of the square. So that already technically meets the requirements for the zoning. But the courtyard isn't conducive to the various activity that this green space where the townhomes would be. I see use of this space all day, every day. Dogs, people walking through to the mailboxes. It's personally something that I love about living there on the corner, is just like seeing people, seeing it be used. I think that's something, I've grown up in Huntersville. I moved away for a while, but I think something that, makes Huntersville special is the spaces that promote these type of activities. Time with family and friends, space for animals, what have you. I don't want to see more of that disappear. And I do think that the destruction of the space is not equitable to the amount of housing it would create. Like I said, it's just not enough space for 4 townhomes. I think that the more we can oppose changes like this in areas where the proposal considerably diminishes the integrity of the neighborhood for reasons that they've already stated, the material for the housing not being brick, we should. At the rate Huntersville is growing, I think preserving spaces like that, just a small green space, has to be a priority. And the value of current residents' space, privacy, consideration shouldn't be ignored. And the value of spaces like this should not be ignored as well. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Item 9D, conduct a public hearing on petition R24-08, a request by Stephen A. McLean to rezone. Mr. Farber.
All right. Whenever you're ready. Okay, so the applicant Stephen A. McLean is proposing to rezone 0.591 acres from corporate business to neighborhood residential. This is, can you do one more click? Yeah, so this is the aerial overview of the property in question. To the south, you have the industrial Commerce Station development. And to the north, you have the existing residential homes off of South Church Street. A little background, so the applicant purchased this 0.591 acres from the town of Huntersville earlier this year in order to recombine it with his existing parcel. He does have plans to later subdivide this property for a family member, so that, speaking of the town-owned land was once part of Veerhoff Drive Bridge Extension right-of-way, and that project was completed in 2012, and the remaining right-of-way was no longer needed. Next slide. So the property in question is located within the employment center, and the rezoning is not consistent with this land use character area, though the proposed NR zoning district's uses do better align with the existing residential homes off of Church Street. This would also provide a clear delineation between the industrial uses to the south of Veerhoff Drive and the residential uses to the north of Veerhoff Drive. And with that, staff recommends approval of the rezoning as it's consistent with the adjacent development north of Veerhoff Drive. With this recommendation, staff would also recommend updating the future land use map from Employment Center to moderate density in order to be consistent, again, with the surrounding residential properties. Any questions?
Any questions? No questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Item 10A, adopt a resolution to revise CIP and submit application to the fall 2024 CRTPO. Mr. Trout.
Good evening. Tonight, here before you is an item to update the town CIP for the Stumptown Extension Project, and also endorse the application to CRTPO for the Stumptown Extension. So the Stumptown Extension Project is one that the town's previously applied for funding a couple years ago. At that time, the eligible portion of Stumptown that we could apply for was the work along 115 and along the existing part of Stumptown to the west of there. Since then, the application process has been changed to now allow roads that have not been built to apply for funding. And so this application would be to apply for funds for the other part of Stumptown extension that was previously not included in the application. So if the town does apply for this, then, that could be more funding towards that current project, if it was a selected project as part of the CRTPO process. Glad to answer any questions you have.
Any questions? No questions? All right.
Emily, they need to
We have a,
approve the
yes,
resolution, correct?
yes.
Make a vote to approve the resolution.
Can I have a motion for item 10A?
I was just waiting on the. I would like to make a motion to adopt the resolution to revise the CIP and submit an application to the Fall 2024 Charlotte Regional Transportation Organization call for projects for the Stumptown Road Extension between NC 115, Old Statesville Road, and Arborfield Road project.
May I have a second?
A second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Item 10B.
All right, same process as the last one, different project. So this project, again, to submit to CRTPO for funding, is for the Oliver Hager Road extension. And so this project is actually, go forward a couple just to see where it is. So on the west side of town, Oliver Hager or Irvin Cook Road is one that's planned to extend from 73 all the way down to Gilead Road. Portions of the road exist. The southern portion exists today. And the very northern portion is under construction by a subdivision. So this project would extend that further south. Go to the next slide. And then also, as part of the project, would extend Burkdale Commons Parkway. This is a project that's already in the town CIP. If the town doesn't apply for the funding, then the town would be on there for 100% of it. So the town's asking for funding for a portion of it, and that portion is the Oliver Hager Road portion, which is shown here to extend from the development further south. And then the uneligible portion to apply for funding is that Burkdale Commons Parkway extension. So happy to answer any questions you have about this one.
Any questions? No questions. All right. May I have a motion for item 10B?
I make a motion to amend the CIP and applying for CRTPO funding for the Oliver Hager Road Extension project. The town is requesting $3,030,951 from CRTPO and will commit $3,030,951 of local dollars, which equate to a 50% local match.
May I have a second?
A second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 11, closing comments. Commissioner Rivers. Commissioner Walsh. Commissioner Dumas.
I'll be quick. There's been a couple of events over the since we had our last meeting here in town. Our town employees have been very busy, and I just wanted to send kudos on a couple of those. The Bike and Brew, I think it was called. Biketober, no. It was the Greenway. The Greenway Committee did a great event. I think it was called Bike and Brew. Yeah. And there was, our police department there was giving out helmets, and it was great, superly. It was wonderfully attended. And it was just a wonderful event. So thank you so much to the Greenways Committee for throwing that. And then Huntersville Halloween, I had the pleasure of attending that for, I couldn't stay till the end, but I heard such amazing things about our, we did a drone show instead of fireworks, heard amazing things from people who attended and that were just driving by wondering, what is that? So thank you so much to our team for making those successful.
Commissioner Hunt. Commissioner Quarles?
I want to be proactive and thank and salute all the veterans, all those who have served on November 11th. Happy Veterans Day.
Commissioner Bergson? All right, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned. Thank you.
No.